Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter, with another Ask a Crafter video. As you can see, I'm wearing the same sweater from the last one, so I'm still picking away at that first batch of questions you left on my community tab. If you have a question for an upcoming video, make sure you leave it on the most recent Ask a Crafter thread on my community tab on my YouTube channel. I'll put a link to that in the video description so you can find it. That's where I'll be getting the questions from, and if you like a question, give it a thumbs up. Because I will be choosing questions based on how many votes they have. The ones with the most votes will get answered. This first question comes from Starshine Soldier. She's a longtime watcher of the Frugal Crafter channel. She says, you mentioned that you made digital stamps. How did you do that? It was a longer question, but that's the gist of it. So basically what I would do, and there's different ways to do this, but the way I designed my stamps was that I would hand draw them, I would ink them with micron pens, I would scan them into my computer, and then I used I did a couple things. If I was going to make an SVG out of it, which is a file you can either print or you can scale it up or scale it down without losing quality, and you can cut it in digital cutting machines, I would use a program called Inkscape to trace it and remove the background and save it as a PNG file. If I was doing it just for a digital stamp, then, which is basically a black and white image you could print out in color and use just like you would a rubber stamp, you'd use the image like you would a stamped image. I'd scan it in. I would use usually the magic wand tool in Paint Shop Pro to remove the background and just clean it up, make sure it looked nice and good, and I would save it as a PNG file. And I would also save it as a JPEG file. If you are just doing this so that you can like print out, you want to scan your drawing, you want to print it out a bunch of times, scanning it as a JPEG is fine. Just try to clean it up so you don't have any smudges in the background. You want to get perfect black and perfect white. So that when you print it off, you don't have any gray printing off anywhere, unless, you know, you want to do like a grayscale. Like I've seen coloring books that are like that, done in grayscale. So it's up to you whether you want to remove the background, make it transparent, and save it as a PNG file, or leave it as a JPEG. I think for most printing and coloring applications, saving it as a JPEG is going to be just fine. You can use the Curves tool in Paint Shop Pro or whatever photo editing software you use to tweak it so that you get your whites white, you increase the contrast so your whites are white and your black is black, and it prints out nice and clean. So that's pretty much how I did it. Some people draw right onto their computer. There's apps for your iPads and your phones and stuff. I've never used them, but that's certainly an option too, so do whatever works best for you. Then this next question has a lot of upvotes. This is Elskasobre, I'm sorry, I probably pronounced that wrong. How much time do you budget each week for editing your videos versus filming, and what editing software do you use? Thank you, I still love the watercolor and card videos you make. Well, thank you very much. Well, now, last 3 years, my husband has been doing my editing, so I don't have to factor that in. But back when I was doing daily videos, I would pretty much practice them and then film them all in one take, so I didn't have to spend a lot of time editing or no time editing. I also had a video camera, and they're very hard to find. The one that I had is discontinued, but it had a pause feature, so I could actually pause it and I could edit. So basically I would do a portion of a video and I would pause it, and like if I had something I didn't want to film, and then I would hit pause again and start filming again when I needed to. I think some phones actually have that feature. My old cheapo track phone had that feature. So that's how I would do it. But I'm trying to think. I don't know how much time Jason spends editing for my YouTube channel. Not as much as for my Teachable School. The Teachable School takes a lot more time in editing because it's more of a professional quality video going up there. They're professional classes, so most of the time goes into the Teachable Schools. Like I edit my Sketchbook Sunday myself, which is basically time-lapsing and voicing it over. That takes about, to time-lapse it and voice it over, do the tweaking, probably about an hour of hands-on time, and then the other time is just kind of like going and waiting for it to render and uploading it and then typing the stuff out on YouTube. So I'm sorry, that didn't really help very much, but I guess when it was just me, I probably spent about 8 to 10 hours a week editing. But I was doing daily videos, so you know, it depends on how long your videos are and how often you're uploading. It's really personal. Some people spend 20 hours editing a video. I can't speak for anybody else other than me. I don't do a lot. As you can see, if you've watched my channel, I don't do a ton of editing. I'm more likely to practice something a bunch of times and then do it in one take. That's my personal preference, because then I see problems that arise, and if I make a mistake on camera, people see how I fix it. I think it's a little bit more instructive, but that's just me. Okay, this one has a lot of votes. Beth C asks, how do I keep my pink rubber stamps from getting hard? Is there any way to keep clear stamps from getting gummy and unusable? Oh, a twofer. Okay, usually when clear stamps go gummy and unusable, it's because they've had exposure to ultraviolet light. So I store my stamps in binders, and I also store them in my basement so it stays cool and dark. And I've only had like one stamp go bad in my, oh gosh, 20 years of using photopolymer stamps. And it was light related, I'm pretty sure, because I got them secondhand, and I think they'd been exposed. You'll see, like, if you, in a store, if they have a stamp set that's photopolymer that's been sitting around for a while, the fluorescent lights in a store will turn the photopolymer yellow. And if they've had any outside light, like light from a window, that really yellows them. So you really want to keep them dark. So storing them in binders is great. The only thing you have to worry about is the top of the binder, so you could throw like a piece of fabric over the tops of your binders if they're getting a lot of light from a window or something. But that keeps my stamps in perfect condition. And as far as the red rubber stamps or pink rubber stamps or any color rubber stamps going hard, what I like to do is use vegetable glycerin, and I actually re-ink my embossing ink pads, just the clear embossing ink pads, with vegetable glycerin. So anytime I use my stamps to emboss, I just leave the glycerin on there. But if I find one that's hard, that's kind of feeling like it won't give when I stamp, it won't stamp well, I ink it up real well with vegetable glycerin, and I leave it alone. Next time I go to use it, it'll be perfect. So do that. Don't use vegetable oil. Vegetable oil could break down the rubber, actually kind of rot it. You want to use vegetable glycerin, but just sponge it on, or find an old embossing pad and load it up with vegetable glycerin and pounce it on there, and it'll keep your stamps in really good condition. All right, let's see, what else do we have with a lot of votes? Nicole asks, how do you keep yourself from overworking a watercolor piece? Any tricks to saving them? Well, if you've watched my channel, you'll see I have to save a lot of paintings. A lot of times I'll go to mixed media if I've like overworked a piece, and I'll use colored pencils or pastel pencils or pastels or watercolor crayons, because you can bring your white back that way. If I've totally botched it and I've messed something up beyond repair, I'll take watercolor ground, and the kind I have is by Daniel Smith. I think there's other brands. I think Golden might make one. I've only used Daniel Smith, but it's basically watercolor paper in a jar, and you can just paint it over the offending area, let it dry. They say let it dry 72 hours. You should do that. I don't do that. But then you can paint right over it like it was watercolor paper. So those are two options right there. You can always add some spatter if it just got real too tight and you don't like the way it looks. But a good rule of thumb is to take a break when you feel like you're 90% done. Take a break. Go have a cup of tea. Go for a walk. Go do something for an hour or two, and then come back and look at it, and then you can see it with fresh eyes, and you'll see it more honestly than when you're just looking at it. Generally that'll prevent you from overworking. You'll either say, yep, it's done, or you'll say, oh, I think it needs a little something. But that would be my advice. The 90% rule. Let's call it the 80% rule. When you think you're 80% done, stop and walk away and come back the next day, and it'll either look perfectly fine and finished, or you'll see what needs to be done. Oh, here's one. How can you tell the quality of crafting paper before you take it home and find out it's loose, pressed, or cuts poorly? Or it says 100 pound and feels like 50. Oh boy, this is a lot of questions. Also, what is Bristol versus other types of paper? What do you recommend for good paper cutters, small and large? Oh my gosh. Okay, Barb, there's a lot of questions in there, Barb. First of all, how can you tell the quality of the crafting paper? It's a lot of trial and error. Sometimes if it's an open pad, like at a craft store, you can kind of feel it and see how thick does it feel. Does it feel like it's 110 pound? If it says index, then it's thinner than what it says. I don't know why. If it says index on it, it's going to be way thinner than what the poundage says. I think they must start with a different size mother sheet that they cut down from. You can go by recommendations. Search the paper online, and on Amazon there'll be star reviews, so you can look at those reviews. Or if it's a crafting paper, you can Google a review for it, because there's probably a review online. Generally, I'll stick with brands that I know do a good job. American Crafts for like for scrapbook paper. They do good paper and their paper cuts really well. I find that die cuts with a view paper cuts really well in digital die cutters. So if you find a brand that you like the quality of, then you can kind of stick to them and just find the prints that you like. As far as watercolor paper, Hahnemühle, Arches, Canson, you know, they're stick with a name brand, and you know, just be aware there's different lines within those name brands. Some quality is going to be better, and it's usually a you get what you pay for type situation. But that would be my advice there. And as far as a good paper cutter, I like the EK Success. It used to be called the Cutterpede or Caterpillar. I think it used to be called the Cutterpede. Now it's just called the EK Success Rotary Cutter. I use that one in here. Mine's the old green version. And I have a big Guillotine X-Acto cutter for when I have to cut a lot of paper. I like that one. That would be my #1 pick, but it's big and it's bulky and doesn't travel well. So those are good good picks. Again, you can look at reviews online and see what looks good. And maybe we'll do one more question. I'm just scrolling through and looking for ones with lots of votes. Okay, this one is by Nadine. Hello, Lindsay. Do you have any tips on sketching landscapes outside? What would you recommend for on the go? Many thanks. Okay, well, I tend to pack very light. I'm a very light traveler when I am going out to paint. I recommend a sketchbook. I like the Stillman and Byrne Beta Series Mixed Media Sketchbook. I generally use it with watercolor, but it's fairly smooth. It works with a lot of media. Then I bring watercolors, and I put them in a original portable painter watercolor palette, and that has that's a little palette. It's about the size of a phone, and it's got 2 water buckets that clip onto the sides or that sheathe over it when it's closed, and bring a bottle of water so you can fill it. That will sit over your knee. It'll sit on the ground, even uneven ground. I take it with me everywhere. So I like that because I don't really care for water brushes, but you could do a water brush if you don't want to do that, and any little palette that you have. I would also bring a white gel pen, a black permanent pen like a Micron or a fine tip Sharpie, a pencil, and an eraser, and like a rag, some paper towels, or a old t-shirt, like cut up t-shirt or something for a rag. And that's really all you need. I wouldn't bring too much because the more you have, the more decisions you have to make once you stop to sketch. And just bring a variety of colors, not too many. 12 is plenty, and that will give you everything you need so you can mix your landscape colors. I generally go with like the 6 basic Daniel Smith essential colors, which is a warm and a cool version of each primary. You can get the 6-set tube at like on Amazon or any art supply store. Amazon's usually cheaper for that particular set. And then I add like a sap green, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, dioxazine violet, because I do like to the strong shadows I can make with that. And I throw a cobalt teal in there as well, because when you're doing ocean, I live on fairly close to the coast. Even the Maine coast will get some of that cobalt teal in there, especially if you go any place tropical, you got the cobalt teal. But that's what I bring. And I have a little case that has a stool and a bag together, but you know, anything. You don't have to have that. You can throw it in a Ziploc bag for that matter. I usually throw it in a Ziploc bag when I'm going to be on the kayak, and keeps it dry while I'm kayaking out, and then I can just, you know, use it right from the kayak because the palette goes right over my leg. So that's my favorite pick there. Oh, this never keeps my space. Let me go see. Do we have another one with a lot of comments? And I apologize if you left a comment and I didn't get to it, but I can't get to them all. There was over 100, like 157 comments, and some of them had multiple questions. Let's see. Oh, this was a good one. Barbara asks, I've decided to purge my leftover parts of past craft projects. I have beads and thread and all kinds of interesting things. I'm paraphrasing because it's a longer question. Where can I donate them? I would suggest preschools, scouting groups, elementary schools, maybe high schools if you have more advanced leftovers. Generally, scouting groups and preschools are good for that sort of thing, because elementary schools tend to have to create lesson plans, and if they have random things, they can't really create a plan around it, so it doesn't help them as much as it would like a scouting group or preschool or Sunday school. Even like senior centers and nursing homes, things like that, will take those products because they can do like a card making session with the residents, and and make use of them that way. And they generally have pretty strained budgets, so that works out really well for them. All right, I think, oh, here's one more. This one's got 29 votes. It's from Beth C. Can an alcohol-based blender pen be refilled? If so, with what ink or alcohol, or what percent, or do you dilute it? Yes, Beth, you can refill your clear blending pens. Generally, you pull out the chisel nib, and you can drip in either like the Copic blending solution, or I've used denatured alcohol from the hardware store. That works really well. You probably could get away with a 90% alcohol from the pharmacy, but you want a strong alcohol, don't dilute it. I like denatured alcohol because it is super strong. It is kind of smelly. It smells more than the Copic blending solution, which is pure ethanol. So that would be the preference probably, but either will work. Just depends on what you like. And don't dilute it, because if you dilute it, you're going to dilute its blending or lifting ability. Well, that's it for the second Ask a Crafter video. For those of you who are wondering why it's not longer, I've just been recording all day and my voice has about had it. So if you want to add some questions, please look for my most current Ask a Crafter thread on my community tab on my YouTube channel, and the ones with the most votes will get answered in an upcoming video. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.